There are places in the world that don't appear on any navigation app, not because they are secret, but because no algorithm has been able to calculate the risk of reaching them. These are routes that exist on the fringes of civilization, traced not by engineers, but by the brutal necessity of those who have no other option. Paths where the difference between life and death is measured in inches, where asphalt gives way to sliding earth, crumbling rock and silence that promises nothing. Contrary to what many believe, these places do not belong to the past. They are operating right now. At this very moment, while you watch this video, someone is crossing one of these paths with clenched teeth and eyes fixed on the horizon, praying that the next meter will be just like the one before. Most of these people did not choose to be there for the thrill of adventure. They were pushed to that point by the absence of alternatives, by poverty that closes every other door, by an unforgiving geography, and by governments that have turned their backs on these regions for decades. What we are about to show you is not a list of dangerous attractions. It is a living document about the limits of the world we know and what lies beyond them. The first path on this list lies in the Bolivian Andes and carries a name that needs no explanation: the Death Road. But what few people know is that it was not built to kill, it was built to connect. In the 1930s, Paraguayan prisoners of war were forced to carve a strip of land less than 4 meters wide along a cliff that drops hundreds of meters below. There was no modern equipment, no safety nets, no security protocol. There were only hands, primitive tools, and the order to keep moving. The result was a road that for decades served as the main link between La Paz and the producing regions in the north of the country. Loaded trucks, packed buses, and motorcycles shared the same impossible space, with no guardrails, no road signs, no margin for error. In 1999, a bus tried to swerve around an oncoming vehicle. The driver found no room. The vehicle disappeared into the abyss with more than 100 passengers. None survived. A new road was opened in the 2000s, but local residents continue using the old path because the alternative requires a detour that can take hours. Meanwhile, tourists arrive on bicycles to feel the adrenaline of riding where others lost their lives. What seems like adventure to some is, for others, the only road home. And that alone should tell us something very uncomfortable about the world we live in. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next adventures through this world that is still unknown to so many. If dirt roads are dangerous, imagine what happens when man decides to lay iron tracks over chasms, volcanoes, and oceans that ask no one's permission. The most extreme railways on the planet were not born out of courage. They were born out of economic necessity and an era when human life was worth less than a construction deadline. In Indonesia, on the island of Java, there is a railway bridge called Cikubang. It stands more than 80 meters high and was built by colonial engineers in 1906, using early century technology, hand-drawn calculations, and metal that now carries over 100 years of vibrations. Local train drivers have a saying to describe the crossing: "You don't cross this bridge with your eyes, you cross it with your body." Speed must be reduced so the metal doesn't begin to resonate in uncontrollable ways. Every jolt travels up through the spine. Every creak of the old steel is an unanswered question. Below, life goes on as normal. Children bathe in the river, women wash clothes, farmers work the land. They are so used to trains passing 80 meters above their heads that they don't even look up. Engineers have already issued reports warning that metal fatigue has exceeded the original design limits. But there is no alternative route. Closing the bridge would mean isolating an entire industrial region. So every day, the driver takes a deep breath, slows down, and trusts that today will be no different from yesterday. On the other side of the planet, in southern Japan, a railway crosses the foot of a volcano that never stops breathing. The Minami Aso line was built near Mount Aso, Japan's largest active volcano, in a region where the ground trembles regularly and smoke rising from the crater is not a rarity. It is routine. In 1928, engineers built a 60-meter-high steel bridge over a valley that, over the decades, survived dozens of earthquakes. The protocol for drivers is strict. If a tremor occurs during the crossing, the train cannot stop in the middle of the bridge. It must keep moving until it reaches solid ground, regardless of the intensity of the quake. In 2016, a severe earthquake destroyed sections of the line at several points. Recovery took 7 years. The line only returned to service in 2023. The volcano did not change its plans. It kept erupting, kept releasing smoke, kept reminding everyone that the decision to build a railway there was made by man, not by nature. And here, a question begins to grow heavier as this video goes on. How many of these structures that seem permanent are, in fact, simply waiting for the right moment to fail? The answer, when it comes, will arrive without warning. There is a point on the map of Central America where the longest highway in the world simply stops. The Pan American Highway connects Alaska to Patagonia along nearly 30,000 kilometers. The entire stretch is continuous, paved and marked, except for one single section, the Darien Gap, on the border between Panama and Colombia. It is 100 kilometers of dense jungle that has swallowed every human attempt to cross it. The Spanish tried in the 16th century and failed. American engineers tried in the 20th century with heavy machinery and gave up. The climate, the diseases, the rivers that constantly change course, and the vegetation that reclaims any open space within weeks made every project unviable. Today, this stretch is controlled not by any government, but by armed groups that use the jungle as cover. Those who try to cross on foot, and there are those who try, face chest-deep mud, piranha-infested rivers, venomous snakes camouflaged among the roots, and the very real possibility of encountering people who want no witnesses. In 2022, a group of migrants who tried to find a shortcut through the forest was located weeks later. 2 had died from snake bites. 3 died from dehydration and infection. The survivors described days sunk in mud, surrounded by the roar of howler monkeys echoing from every direction, with no way of knowing whether they were moving forward or walking in circles. The jungle does not kill in a hurry. It simply waits. The Brazilian Amazon holds a path even less known than the Darien, but equally relentless. In the far north of the country, in the Yanomami indigenous territory, there is a route that has been used for centuries by local communities to connect villages separated by days of dense trekking. There is no official name, no marking on any map, no signage of any kind. The path is passed down orally from generation to generation, and anyone who did not grow up learning every detail of the forest simply cannot follow it. What makes this route even more unsettling is the layer of danger added in recent decades. Illegal miners who have infiltrated the region and who, by documented accounts, do not tolerate the presence of outsiders. Anthropologists, journalists, and researchers who attempted to enter the area without local authorization have disappeared. In some cases, bags and equipment were found on riverbanks. Bodies, never. For the Yanomami, the path is life. It is how seeds, medicinal herbs, and news from distant relatives arrive. For those who come from outside, it is a trap that gives no warning when it closes. And while the political debate over the protection of this territory continues in distant capitals, the trails keep being used by those who have no choice, carrying the sick in their arms for days on end, to reach some medical post on the banks of a river that, depending on the time of year, may also be flooded. This is not a path of adventure, it is a path of survival, and the difference between the two is greater than any physical distance. Some of the most impressive structures in the world were built on a foundation that no engineer ever puts in the blueprints: human bodies. In Southeast Asia, between Thailand and the former Burma, there is a 415-kilometer railway that its own builders called the Death Railway before it was even finished. In 1942, the Imperial Japanese Army needed a supply route that would cut through tropical jungle and overcome rivers, mountains, and wartime disease. The solution was to bring in more than 200,000 forced laborers from occupied territories and around 60,000 Allied prisoners of war. There was no sophisticated machinery. There were pickaxes, baskets, hands, and orders to keep moving. The jungle returned malaria, dysentery, and cholera in exchange for every meter cleared. Hunger was used as a control variable. Workers who did not meet their daily quota received less food. Those who fell ill were left where they dropped. In 18 months of construction, approximately 100,000 people died. That means that, statistically, every railway sleeper cost more than one human life. The line was inaugurated in October 1943. Part of it still exists and is still in use. Tourists photograph the bridge over the River Kwai and buy souvenirs in nearby towns. Few stop to consider exactly what they are walking on. On the opposite end of the world, in Ecuador, a railway climbs a nearly vertical granite wall using a solution that, even today, modern engineers admit would not pass any contemporary risk assessment. The so-called Nariz del Diablo, or Devil's Nose, is a section of the Guayaquil-Quito line where the mountain simply does not allow a straight ascent. The gradient is too steep for any locomotive. So whoever designed the line in 1908 invented a zigzag system. The train moves forward to a dead end, stops, reverses direction, climbs one level, moves forward again, stops, reverses again. In this halting, lurching way, the train scales the mountain wall as if climbing a staircase. To lay the tracks on that wall, workers brought from Jamaica and Puerto Rico were suspended on ropes over precipices with tools in hand, chiseling granite centimeter by centimeter. About half of them never made it home. The altitude reduced available oxygen, making every swing of the pickaxe twice as exhausting. Falls happened, and on those mountain slopes, there was no way to even recover the bodies. The railway was completed. The scenery is breathtaking. The train still climbs the Devil's Nose, and down below, in the cold rock, remain those who never truly made it up. What all these places have in common is not the danger itself. It is what the danger reveals, that there is a parallel world to the one we know, where the safety rules we take for granted simply do not exist. In Tajikistan, crossing the Pamir Mountains at altitudes reaching nearly 5,000 meters, there is a road built by the Soviets as a strategic military route that, after the collapse of the USSR, was left to its own fate. Today, it is maintained in a precarious state by local residents and international organizations that carry out isolated repairs on a structure that, in several sections, literally hangs over rivers hundreds of meters below, resting on concrete pillars that are more than half a century old. Engineers who inspected the road have issued formal warnings. Some sections are on the verge of structural collapse. There is no funding to replace them. The road remains open because without it, entire villages would be cut off for months. In 2014, a school bus got trapped in a snowstorm on this stretch for 3 days. 2 students died of hypothermia before rescue workers could reach them. After the rescue, the bus was removed, the bodies were buried, and the following week, the transport service resumed on the same schedule. Not because no one cared, but because stopping would mean leaving the villages without access to food, medicine, and the outside world. In Bangladesh, once a year, the logic of collective danger reaches its most intense expression. The city of Tongi receives around 5 million Muslim pilgrims within just a few days for the religious gathering known as Biswa Ijtima. The local railway infrastructure was designed for a fraction of that demand. The result is visible and documented. People travel on top of the carriages in tight rows, hanging off the sides of the trains, balanced on the coupling platforms between the cars. Every year, the authorities try to implement barriers, protective nets, and access controls on the rooftops. Every year, those measures are simply bypassed because the human will to reach a destination is stronger than any instruction. Falls happen. Deaths are recorded and classified as accidents. The train leaves the next morning with the rooftops equally packed. This is the final paradox of everything we have seen today. The most dangerous paths in the world are not kept open out of carelessness or irresponsibility. They are kept open by the silent force of millions of people who have no other way out. And while the debate about safety and infrastructure takes place in air-conditioned offices, these people keep crossing abysses, scaling volcanoes, navigating jungles, and balancing on moving carriages. Not by choice, but because the path, however impossible it may seem, is still the only one that exists. And tomorrow, when the sun rises, someone will be on it again. If you made it this far, you already know the world is much bigger and much more surprising than it seems. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and hit the notification bell so you never miss any of these stories that few people know and almost no one tells.